And we're live.
We're live. Hello.
Hey, hi.
I know. It's been a while planning this, huh? We've been thinking about it for
wow.
ages, haven't we?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So for those of you joining on my channel, welcome. This is Mrs. J, that side, the very wonderful, lovely moderator on my channel, as well as Goldie, who has launched her own channel, and she's interviewing me today. So I'm very much going to be taking a back seat and answering all the questions. But if you're watching on my channel, go and subscribe to Mrs. J and show her some of the SPTV love.
Thank you. And also, I'm going to throw it back the other way and say, that way, and say, all of you lovely people on who's watching on my channel, go and sub to the lovely Alex, and because we want to share the love, and basically we get together and have a little chat and gather up and talk about this, because we've been meaning to do it, and I've been the one who's been more sort of like, you've been doing loads of stuff, and I've sort of hidden away a bit, wasn't I?
But been a bit all over the place, yeah.
Yeah. And I've with Alex already knows about this, but I've created a website called I am L1Hubbard.com. So please, if you want to have a giggle and find out what happens to L. Ron Hubbard after he passed away, go to www.IamL1Hubbard.com. And if you hear a scratching noise, that is my rabbit eating the underside of my table whilst I'm talking to you.
Excellent.
He's munching away down there. Hello, Goldie. Let's say hello to everybody.
We love Goldie. Hi, Goldie. And hi, Liz. We love Liz.
Yay. Hello,
Liz is
lovelies.
amazing.
How you doing? Hello.
So I don't actually have, because this is Mrs. J's stream, I don't have the ability to pull up comments or anything like that. So we're in the trusted, very capable hands of Mrs. J here. So I can, I'm still reading the comments and everything. For those of you watching on my channel, go and subscribe to Mrs. J, show her some love, and get her some watch hours. Watch this stream on her channel, and then she gets watch hours for it.
Yeah, I'm finally stepping out into a bit more of a limelight and telling people, because I've been hidden away for so long.
Yeah.
Alex and I have actually known each other quite a while. And Alex was one of the people that I showed my website to before I actually launched it. So that's we've known each other quite a while. And lovely chap. Hello,
Thank
Juliana.
you.
Good to see you. I missed anyone? I don't think so. There we go. Right then, I shall get doing the interview bit. I can't believe I'm on the telly box. Look at me on the telly box. Let's go. What have I got? I've got what I have to do, because I get a little bit flustered. I do my questions. I write them out. And think about them beforehand, and then see what happens when we flow through it.
Sure.
But Alex has no idea what questions I've got.
Throwing me in at the deep end. I don't know what to expect from this, but I trust you, and we're in this together. So let's hit me with it. Let's go.
Okay. So what initially attracted you to Scientology, and what motivated you to become part of it?
It's a really good question. So I was a teenager and very much in that state of mind of trying to find out who I am and what the meaning of life is, all that sort of stuff that everyone goes through, those existential questions that you go through as a teenager. And I'd heard a lot about Scientology. I saw the BBC Panorama documentary, and I very much was like, well, you know, there's a lot that's negative about Scientology, and I don't believe in following exactly what you hear in the media 100% and taking it at face value. I always want to do my own research, and I always thought, well, to find out about Scientology, I've heard all the bad stuff. You know, I want to hear what they've got to say for themselves, and see if what the media is saying is true, or whether it's just a biased news reporter or whatever that's trying to make it seem bad. You've got to remember this was a while ago, so there was stuff out there on the internet, but this was before the whole Aftermath show, and there was only 1 or 2 documentaries that existed about Scientology at the time. And so I went in, I did a personality test, and I was like, okay, what's this all about? And I gave them a bit of a tough time, and I was like, I hear you disconnect families and do all this sort of stuff, and, you know, ask them all tough questions. And I think the thing a lot of people don't realize is the way they answer questions, which I was then trained to do, is it's kind of like a politician. They don't answer the actual question. They tell you what you want to hear. And so they just craft their responses that make you think, okay, maybe what I've heard isn't quite true, or maybe there are some people that have had some bad experiences, but that's not representative of everyone's experience in Scientology. You know, it's just 1 or 2 people that have had a bad thing. But the best way to find out is to, you know, read a book yourself. Like, Scientology is all based on these books, so why don't you get a book and read a book? And I was like, okay, that sounds fair enough. No strings attached. You know, read the book, and there's, you know, it doesn't cost $1 million. It's, you know, no pressure. You come in and do a course on the book, and you come in once a week and do a lesson. And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's also fine. You know, you just carry on with your life and take it or leave it. And so it all sounds very kind of, you know, even if you're critically minded or suspicious or anything like that, it's all very much like, cool, well, why don't you're in control. You do what you want. If you don't like it, fine. And so, that's how I kind of got in, and there were some tools and things that you learn in the books and the basics and the life improvement courses that I thought, great. I mean, nothing massively life-changing, but I could see how if I apply this might help me in communication, or, you know, help me manage stress or whatever it is. So I thought, okay, great. And, you know, next one thing leads to another, and 6 months later, I'm on staff.
Crazy. And how old were you?
So when I first got into Scientology, I would have been 15, I think.
2 seconds, rabbit. One mo. I'm going to have to do this 1 minute.
No problem.
Loki, get down. Get down. I'll put you in the bin. Get down.
I put him in the bin.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, so it's I was a teenager. I was a very young little kiddo.
Whippersnapper. I mean, 15. It's such a influential age, isn't it? Because we're rebellious, and we want to do something different to our parents and things like that. Did you see any of the whole John Sweeney thing, or was it?
Yeah, so BBC, this is one thing I think a lot of people don't realize. BBC Panorama, there were 2 of them, right? There was the first one, which is where John Sweeney investigated Scientology, and he went in and he lost it, and the famous, you know, you were not there thing. And then the second one was a follow-up to that a year or 2 later, which is the first documentary I saw. That's where I first heard of Scientology. It was the second one. And I recently rewatched this because I thought, I wonder what it is that actually piqued my interest. And in the second one, it's all about how Scientology were trying to, you know, attack John Sweeney and what it does to people from an OSA standpoint, but it doesn't actually talk about the beliefs and practices of Scientology, because that's covered in the first one, right? So I think that's part of why I was interested after seeing the second one, because I hadn't seen the first one. So the second one is a standalone documentary. It's very much about, they tried to make John Sweeney look really bad, and then there's these people that are upset, and I was like, okay, that sounds really bad, but what is actual Scientology? Because that's not really covered in the second one, whereas it is in the first one. If I'd seen the first one, it might have been different. But that's how I was interested, because I was like, cool, this documentary is just about how it discredits people who speak out and tries to make people look as bad as possible. It doesn't actually tell me what Scientology is and why they do this, because that was covered in the first one that I hadn't seen. So that was very much what piqued my interest.
Wow. Right, you might have even just that actually brings us quite nicely onto this. Can you explain some of the core beliefs? So what are the core beliefs of Scientology? So if I say, hello, I don't know anything about Scientology, What is it?
Well, do you want me to give you the real answer, or do you want me to give you the PR answer I would give when I was in Scientology? Because I can give you both.
Yes, do both.
When I was director of public book sales at the Church of Scientology in London, I had this question all the time: what is Scientology? And the answer is very much, well, why don't you buy a book and read it and find out for yourself, right? Or Scientology is a really complex thing to understand. It's like practical tools that you can apply to make you better in life or whatever. But it's a huge subject, and the best thing to do is to try it for yourself, read a book. So that's what you would say, but that doesn't actually answer the question.
No, and do you know what, if anyone in the UK watches Big Brother, when Kirstie Alley came on Big Brother, it was relentless. That's what she said. If you really want to know about it, get the book.
Find out for yourself. Yeah.
Find out,
And I think yourself. Yeah, that is such a cool thing in the PR line of like, find out for yourself, because it is meant to be this, spiritual, personal journey. And there's a whole policy on verbal tech, which means you're not allowed to interpret or tell other people what you think about it. It's all about what you think and what you've read and understood. And the best way to learn about Scientology is just to try it yourself. Read a book, and if you don't agree with it, great. If you do agree with it, fantastic. Get another one. So the whole idea is making it seem like really open, and you're the one in control. There's none of this like control or manipulation that people talk about, because actually I'm just inviting you to try and find out for yourself. So that's how it starts. It's really kind of, well, why don't you find out? What if you walked into a Christian church, they'd give you a Bible and you'd read the Bible, and there we go. And with Scientology, it's like, cool, well, read Dianetics, and that will tell you the beginning of it all.
And you'll be doing this all, you're going to be doing this for yourself. So it's a self motivation thing. You're motivating yourself to do it.
Exactly. But in reality, I mean, the easiest way of explaining Scientology, I would say, is L. Ron Hubbard, who was a failed science fiction writer, wrote a book called Dianetics, which was called The Modern Science of Mental Health. There he is. And it's not a science at all, but it's presented in that way. And it's kind of, the idea is, you look back at your life and past traumas and experiences you've had, and you use a process called auditing, which they describe as spiritual counseling, where you sit with another person. And basically, you go through these traumatic and past bad experiences in your life and confront them and deal with them. And hopefully that unlocks certain things in your life that make you more confident and more able to deal with situations. And the whole topic of Scientology is so vast. It's like, there are specific courses, life improvement courses on different things, whatever you want to improve in your life, whether it's your marriage or your finances or, your job prospects, your business, whatever, communication. There's a course that you can do that will help you, give you tools and advice that can help you get better in that area. So that's the nutshell of what it is. But actually, in reality, it's something that ends up using a lot of manipulative and coercive control techniques. And it's a very extremist religion, in that once you're in and fully indoctrinated, you are fully in, and there is no place for any other way of thinking. So you have to, fully let it take over your life and fully be in. And at that point, it becomes quite controlling. And the real effects of it is it can rip families apart. It can cause disconnection, and it's a horrible, traumatic thing for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean the people involved aren't good people. A lot of people, in fact, I would say almost all of the Scientologists that I knew when I was in were genuinely good people, and they genuinely believed that they were helping people, and that's why they're doing it. And that's why I was doing it, because I genuinely thought that this was the way to help humankind and help other people. So they're not generally ill-intentioned or or have bad intentions. It's just unfortunate that they feel that this is the only way to help people, because then when it actually has a negative impact on people, then that causes real issues. And the reality is that it doesn't necessarily help every single person, and it actually does destroy a lot of lives and hurt a lot of people. But there has to be something good in it in the beginning, otherwise people wouldn't join, right? So there's nuggets of truth and help.
It's finding your ruin, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then if you find the ruin, then we're gonna sort that out for you. We're gonna help you out with that little thing there, and then suddenly you're just completely and utterly sucked in. What I like to say in British terms, Alex, wankers.
Yes, it's very true. And it's interesting to see how it changes you as a person, right? I went in and came out a different person because it unlocks certain parts of your brain and it helps you confront things, be more confident. It has those benefits, but when you look back on it, you go, well, hold on, I was a different person here because I was fully indoctrinated and believed that this was the way to help humankind. And if you aren't interested or you're going to get in my way, then you can go fuck yourself, because this is the truth. This is the only way. And that's horrible that it changes you into that person.
Yeah. Crazy, man. Next one. How did the transition from Dianetics to Scientology occur? You know, what were the key changes or developments that marked this transition? Because I can't, I can't get my head around. There's a book, and then suddenly it's a religion. It's like this. How the hell did that happen? What happened there?
It's that's a really good question. And without going into the weeds too much, Dianetics was written in 1950, and it was very much a mental health thing. It's the modern science of mental health. And it was all about engrams, your reactive mind, and it was very much not a spiritual thing. Over time, I think it would have been the early 60s, it then started evolving into this spiritual realm, into Scientology, because, I mean, some people say it's because he can get tax exempt status, and that probably does come into play to some extent. But I think it also just enables the thing that is Scientology to become that much more powerful in its control of people, because then suddenly you're not just dealing with your mind, you're dealing with you as a spiritual being, and so therefore you can apply things in different ways, and it has much more control over people. I mean, it probably developed from Dianetics, which is this whole idea of looking at past traumatic experiences. People would, in auditing sessions, come up with memories from past lives and be like, oh, you know, this happened to me 20 million years ago or whatever, which obviously is not necessarily the truth. It's imagination. But when you fully believe that that is the case, Owen Hubbard was probably like, well, okay, well, if there's past lives, that means I'm accessing here with auditing, not just your mind in this body. There must be something more. And I'm accessing you as a being that is immortal and so on.
We're inside a meat body.
Yeah.
A thetan inside a meat body.
Precisely.
So it's crazy. Right. What have I got next for you? So, yes, I know I was going to ask you, because what was your job, basically? What did you do?
So when I first joined, well, this is another question. Do you want to do the job one first?
Yeah, do the job one first.
So when I first joined, I was what's called an expediter, which is the first post you get in the Church of Scientology, where you kind of help out in all different areas of the church before they post you. I was in Division 6A, which is the public-facing division. So I was going out book selling, selling Dianetics to people, doing stress tests. And as a teenager, as a very young group of people, it was very fun and enjoyed it. And so went and did a lot of that. And then I got kicked out.
Can I ask you though?
Yeah.
Can I ask you though? So do you think that they went, young people, let's have the young people do this because they look great and they're charismatic and they're on fire for it. So let's bring out the young people.
So the whole of London Org at the time was very young anyway, because London Org was and still is very much run by second and third generation Scientologists that live down near St. Hill in East Grinstead, the headquarters of Scientology. So their parents and their grandparents were in Scientology originally, way back in the day. So because they're very young anyway, everyone in most of the posts across the board were young. But there are definitely qualifications to get into Div 6. Div 6, because it's public facing, has a higher level of qualification than any other part of the org board, because you're representing Scientology on the public face. So you have to be relatively good looking, you have to be well kept, and like you have to make sure you don't smell and you look healthy and you're outgoing and charismatic. And so there are these traits that you have to be posted in Div 6 because it is such an important public facing division. So there's an element of that, but across the board most people were quite young anyway.
Right. Were there any lots of, were there sort of just were they second gen, do you think, or was
third
it
gen?
Third gen.
Yeah,
wow.
Most of the people I work with are third generation. So we were, I was 15, 16, and then my colleagues would have been 18, 19, something like that.
Wow.
So we would all go out book selling. It was really good fun. And then to cut a long story short, got kicked out. And then when I rejoined a couple of years later, the person who was my senior the first time had moved on to the C organization, which is the devout, kind of monks and nuns of Scientology. So she wasn't there anymore. And I took her post when I rejoined and was then the director of public book sales. So I was in charge of a department in the org.
And how old were you when you were director of public book
when I got posted as a director of public book sales, I would have been 17, 18.
God, wow.
And so held that post for a little while before being kicked out again. And
sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
But no, it is funny to look back on it now. But yeah, so my job very much was public facing, book sales and getting people in. Book sales is one of the most important jobs in an org. There's actually a policy that says book sales is the number one most important activity in an org. I mean, there are lots of policies that say that about lots of different things, but that was particularly pertinent to my job. Is you have to sell books, because selling books is what gets people in the doors, and that's what makes the org money, and that's what makes Scientologists. So book sales is like the number one most important thing. So to be in charge of that was quite important, and I was very young and didn't really know what I was doing. To give you a bit of backstory in terms of what I was meant to be doing, that's not the role I was supposed to have when I joined, because I actually was, as a teenager, interested in law and wanted to go and do a law degree at university. And there's a section in OSA, which is the legal section, which is to do with all the law cases and all of this. And there's a post in the org which is to do with dealing with those cases and talking to lawyers. And I was offered the job at the church in London on the premise that I would get some experience in that section so I could learn about how law works and get some legal experience, and then that would help me in my career to become a lawyer. So that's why I joined, because they offered me this great experience and I could learn about all these legal cases that the church is always dealing with in this Office of Special Affairs. And then obviously once I joined, I was posted as a bookseller and then as the director of public book sales. So it ended up not happening. And then I lost interest in law. Well, I'm still interested in law, but that's not what I ended up doing in my life anyway.
There's something different. So what this is me taking the piss a bit. I do apologise, because I am a bit cheeky with some of my questions. Do you occasionally have nightmares about like being chased by books or like Scientology recruiters or anything like that?
No, I do quite often have nightmares where I go back. That's a recurring thing. Like recently, in the last 2 weeks, I've had at least 2 dreams where I wake up. And it's just a weird bit of a mind fuck, because the dream is all about me going back into the church and different things happen, rejoining and then finding out like people are unhappy, or finding out the truth about what's going on, or going in and saving people and getting them to leave, or going in and then being caught back up in the whirlwind of it and then joining the SEALG. And then, those are the sort of dreams and nightmares that I have at the moment about rejoining rather than anything.
A quick question from the chat. What did you get kicked out for, Alex?
That's a long story. The first time or the second time? Ultimately, I got kicked out because I was upset about something, and had an auditing session, and it made me feel worse. And I was kicking up a bit of a fuss and saying, I want Scientology to work. I want it to make me feel better, and it's not making me feel better. But they took that to mean that I'm saying Scientology doesn't work. So they declared me a potential trouble source, PTS type D, which is responsible for condition case, and basically said, well, you don't believe Scientology works, so you can go do one. And I was like, no, I do believe Scientology works. It's not working on me right now. And then they locked me in a room and said, you have to do an OW write-up, which is overts and withholds. Basically, it's like a confessional. You have to write down on a piece of paper everything you've done wrong against the church, and you're not allowed to leave until you've admitted what you've done wrong. And that was
shit, that's
happened.
just horrible.
So
That's
I did
horrible.
that. Yeah, did that, and then as soon as I'd written it, the guy didn't even read it. He just looked at it and like glanced at it, put it down to one side, handed me my declare, escorted me to my desk to get my stuff, and then the front door and said, "Don't come back."
Laters, dude. Laters, dude. Wow. That's crazy, man.
And this is the thing. Scientology kicks out people who want to stay and are trying to make it work. And the people who want to leave, they try and keep. It makes zero sense. Like, there are people in the Sea Org who are trying to escape and leave, and they won't let them. And then there are people who I at the time wanted to stay and wanted it to work, and they kicked me out. Like, it's just mind fucking. I mean, obviously I don't want to go back now, but
yeah.
But yeah, it makes zero sense.
Yeah. I've just put Alex's email address after that just after that there. I just so that if anybody who is watching this, who is wanting to not be in Scientology anymore and needs support, especially here in the UK. Alex and I have talked about this on a number of occasions where there are, we want to help people in the UK who are in Scientology. There's a lot going on in the States, and we hear a lot going on in the States, and there's big things going on in America. But there's also a lot of people here still in, and this is Alex's email. And if you need any support, give him an email, and he'll be there for you.
Absolutely. And I work very closely with the Aftermath Foundation. So if you're trying to leave or escape Scientology, the Aftermath Foundation will help you no matter where you are in the world. They will reunite you with your family, get you flights, they'll pick you up, they'll get you accommodation, help you get education, write a CV, find a job, whatever it is you need so that you can land on your feet when you leave Scientology. They will help you in the UK or anywhere. So I work very closely with them as well. So if that's the situation you're in, go to the aftermathfoundation.org and they'll help you. But yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, I'm always all ears and I'm always happy to help. I'm not in the business of trying to convince people to leave. It's very much your decision. I'm just here to listen and to talk to people. So if you are on the fence or you're currently in and you just want to ask some questions about my experience or, tell me something about your experience, you can do that, and you can rest assured I'm not going to try and convince you to leave or anything like that, because that's not what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, are there any notable incidences or controversies involving Scientology, specifically here in the UK? Is there anything that's sort of like, whoa?
Yeah. So Scientology in the UK is not a registered charity, so they're tax exempt in the United States, but they are not here in the UK. In the UK, to be tax exempt, you have to prove that you're for the public benefit. Even if you're religious, you have to prove that what you're doing helps other people, not just your own members. And so when Scientology got tax exempt status in the US, they also applied for charity status here, and they were denied in 1999 because they couldn't prove to the government that they existed for the public benefit. So they are currently operating as a for-profit business. But it is a little bit tricky because they have found some loopholes, and they actually operate through a charity registered in Australia called COSRECI, the Church of Scientology Religious Education College Incorporated. So they are the official company that were employers of mine when I worked for the church. So, there's a few controversies and dodgy tax things going on with their setup here. There are numerous stories coming through the woodworks of various abuses and things. Chris Malin, who was on Aaron's channel yesterday and was on Doug's channel before that is a former staff member at the Birmingham org. He talks about very similar story to me, being locked in a room and not allowed to leave until you've done a certain thing. And that seems to be something that happens globally, not just in the US. It happens here in the UK as well. There are also stories like, for example, my senior in the org, Charlie Wackley, his dad is one of only a handful of British people known to have been personally assaulted by David Miscavige, the leader of the church, chairman of the board. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we are just trying to shed a light on.
He's a sneaky miniature man. And quickly go to this one. This is from Veronica. Question. I'm a never-in. Been following the exercise for quite some time. I'm seeing that many ex-Scientologists harbour so much guilt for what they've done while in. How do you let them, how can we let them feel forgiven?
It's that's a really good question, and it's hard because if you think about it, my job was to get people into Scientology. So, and I was London's best bookseller and was resulted in the highest book sold in London's, I believe, history, if not a very long time. I got a commendation for it. So I was very good at my job. I got a lot of people in. And there are undoubtedly people that are still in Scientology now because I got them in. And that's a really hard thing to come to terms with because, you know, you have to face those facts. And the way that I look at it is, at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. So you have to look at it from that angle. If I'd have known I was not doing the right thing, I wouldn't have done it. So therefore,
it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because you and everybody who's in Scientology feel the same way, don't they? They feel like they're really, really doing something special.
That's like what I was saying earlier. It's like, I don't think there are definitely Scientologists that are bad people. Don't get me wrong. But the majority of Scientologists are not necessarily bad people because they genuinely think that they are helping people. I thought I was helping people. That doesn't make me a bad person because I was just ill-informed and under the manipulation of this group. So it's hard when you look at this idea of guilt because there are people still in now, and I don't know who's still in, who isn't, and whether they've had families torn apart and disconnection, all of that. But it's part of that burden you have to carry as an ex to come to terms with the fact that that's just a matter of fact, right? There are lives that would have been harmed as a result of your actions in Scientology. And that's a horrible thing to come to terms with. And there is a lot of guilt there. But you have to look at it from the perspective of, well, I didn't know that was going to happen. I thought I was helping people. And now I'm in a position where I can share stories and help people get out. That's all I can do is reshift my focus and actually raise awareness of what really is going on, talk openly and honestly about my experience, and talk about this sense of guilt and so on, and try and land in a place where you're like, okay, great. Well, I'm owning that happened. I'm owning that I did that. And actually now I want to help people get out and experience life outside of the church. And that's kind of where you have to shift your energy and focus on that, because it's totally fine also just to leave and not think about it and go about your everyday life. Some people just need to silo and do that, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But for me personally, you know, I couldn't live with the guilt if I wasn't doing something about it. And so that's why, you know, I speak out and do my own thing. But everyone is different. So I think the question was, how do you help other people feel forgiven, I think was the question, right? I think just by giving them a space and an opportunity to talk and say, look, we're here to listen, right? Because recovery from Scientology takes a long time. It's overnight. And just give them the space to be themselves and to talk about whatever it is, whether it's on a live stream like this or privately.
I am listening. I have a rabbit doing things. Get down.
No problem. But just giving them the space to talk it out, think about it, process it, and hopefully that helps them.
Sorry, I'm just going to get him off there. He's attacking one of my... He's managed to get up onto the unit because it's because I'm doing this. He's managed to get up on the unit. Maybe I should show you. Here, naughty. It's being naughty. Being naughty, right? It's because I'm doing this at his favourite time of the day, right?
No problem.
And I'm trying to avoid wires as well because he does love a good wire. So I've got everything raised up so I can. There we go.
Absolutely fine.
Mr. Wires, aren't you? Right, let's get back on. You'll see me in a minute. There we go. I'm back.
Hi.
Have to move over for him. There we are. Sorry about that, everybody. I wanted to just touch on this. The whole Scientology can't snitch on another Scientologist or Scientology. So you can't bad mouth Scientology if you're in Scientology, and you can't bad mouth another Scientologist about a Scientologist. Am I correct? Is that right?
Kind of. So there is a snitch culture in Scientology. You have to write reports on everyone and everything because the belief is ethics and Scientology is the only way to help people and to clear the planet. So in order to apply ethics, you have to give the church the responsibility to deal with those things. So if you see, if a friend of yours who's married is cheating on his wife and you see that, if you are ethically and morally a good person, a Scientologist, you would write a report on that to the ethics division and say, hey, I saw this happened, not because you're snitching and it's a horrible thing, but because you believe that the church can help get that person to a place of being ethical and sort it out so that they're not doing unethical things. Again, you think you're helping them, right? So there's a snitch culture. You write reports on everything that you see. There's also a level of threat there. If you are found out to have been involved or see something that happens and you didn't write a report on it, you get in trouble, just like the person who was doing whatever said crime or bad thing was.
It's crazy.
You're encouraged to snitch and you have to snitch, but within Scientology, and it's all under the guise of you think that by snitching, that means they can get the help that they need so that problem is resolved. But then
that is absolutely crazy, by the way. I'm just going to say, Alex, that is crazy. Your mindset of you're constantly wanting to that person's done that wrong. Oh yeah. Oh no, you don't want to do it like that.
But it's not like you're looking out for these things. It's just if something does happen or you see something, your instinct is to report it so that it doesn't happen again, right?
Right.
So you're trying to help these people, but there's this gang mentality as well of where like Scientologists help each other. And this whole idea of ethics is this internal procedure where Scientology can help get ethics in on people and resolve issues and all of this. Because of that, then you believe that there's no need for outside interference, and Scientology ethics, because it deals with this person on a spiritual level, it therefore supersedes and is more important and a better way of dealing with someone's transgressions or wrongdoings than law enforcement, for example, because law enforcement is based on the laws of the country, which aren't informed by this wonderful technology that is Scientology, and they deal with this person for what they've done and not for who they are as a spiritual being. So therefore, laws don't always, and punishment doesn't always work in the right way. Is a belief in Scientology. So you very much don't report on other Scientologists to law enforcement. It is actually a high crime, and doing so would get you declared a suppressive person, because the idea is that Scientology can handle anything, and if there's anything that anything that Scientology, like, there is nothing Scientology can't handle, right? Scientology has the answers to everything. So why would you get law enforcement involved? Because Scientology will sort it out and deal with it.
That is absolutely bonkers. It's bonkers. I just need to say this is really bonkers.
The whole thing is,
it blows my mind when I even listen sometimes to some of the, for example, just to explaining that. Where's my next question? I had it just now and I've just lost it. Where did I put it? There it is. Did you receive a personal Personalized farewell message from Tom Cruise, complete with an autographed copy of Top Gun. Tell us about the letter to David Miscavige.
So no, this is actually quite a funny story. The first time I ever watched Top Gun was in the chapel of the Church of Scientology of London. There was a staff party because we had really good statistics one week, and the reward was, you know, some beers and some food and stuff. And we had like a little staff party after hours, and we all went into the chapel and watched Top Gun on the big projector screen in the chapel. So I found that, even at the time, I found that quite funny. I was like, okay, so I'm a Scientologist, and of course we're watching Tom Cruise in Top Gun. There it is. There's the church. That's
it's a bit blurry.
My old place of work.
It's beautiful.
It is a lovely building. It was a really nicely done building. But yeah. So no, I didn't get a personal message from Tom Cruise. But my letter to David Miscavige. When you start in a new job in Scientology, there are different things you have to do. And one of them is called the non-E campaign. It's called non-existence. The idea is establishing you as the new person that's doing this job, and part of that formula is letting people know, hey, I'm the new guy doing this job now, right? So everyone knows who you are. Kind of makes sense. And obviously I'm reading this policy saying book selling is the number one most important thing any Church of Scientology can do.
You've got the job. So you're so excited.
So me as a teenager and the new director of public book sales thinking this is the most important thing, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to send a message to Dave Miscavige, who's the chairman of the board, and just let him know. So, hey, book selling is the most important thing. I'm in charge of it and I'm in London. So the most important guy in the company should know about it. So I sent him a message and basically just said, hey, I'm the new director of public book sales, you know, and I've signed my SEAL contract. I was on a project prepare at the time to try and land and arrive in the SEAL. So I just let him know. I said, I'm the new guy, director of public book sales, and I'm here to put London on the map. And whatever you need, I'm here for it. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm here. And then that swiftly got me in a lot of trouble because you're not meant to do that.
Yeah, you're not allowed to tell.
But it's innocence. You're a teenager. Like, imagine you are a teenager starting an internship in your first job, and you're excited, and you send an email to the CEO of the company going, hey, I'm the new intern. I just want to let you know I'm here. If you need anything, let me know. Most CEOs are going to be like, oh, that's sweet. How lovely. Okay, great. Thank you. Nice to meet you. But no, that gets you in trouble in Scientology because...
Didn't that bring a red flag up in your head?
Well, no, because I didn't get in trouble for that until I got kicked out. So I sent the message.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I sent the message and I didn't get a reply, didn't expect a reply, but I'm applying my non-existent formula, which is something you have to do when you start a new job in Scientology. There's like a list of things you have to do. And one of them is let people know who are involved in the job that you're doing that you're the new person. So I'm doing it because I have to in my mind. And you don't expect a response. You just have to let people know that you're going to be communicating with. So yeah, I didn't get a response and I didn't expect one because I know he's a very busy guy. Fine. But I've done what I have to do on this checklist of new starter things of informing people. So I've informed you, I've done my thing. And it wasn't until they kicked me out that they then gave me this barrage of, and you've done this wrong, you've done this wrong, you've done this wrong. And one of those items was putting developed traffic, Dev T, on COB's lines, chairman of the board's lines. So like adding to his workload unnecessarily is basically what that means.
Insane.
Yeah.
That's freaking insane. Right. Can you just sort of describe sort of the size of the London org and well, the size of the Scientology here in the UK? How big is it here in the UK?
I believe in the last census it was 2,000. It was either 2,480 or 2,840 something, right? But less than 3,000 Scientologists on the census. That's roughly how many Scientologists declared their religion on the census. It could be slightly more because there are always going to be people that don't put their religion on the census because it's an optional question. But London Org was the first and at the time the only ideal organization in the UK. So there's St. Hill, which is the headquarters down in Sussex. And then there was London, and that was kind of it at the time. There were smaller buildings and orgs in Birmingham, in Sunderland, in Bournemouth, and so on. But we were the only ones that had a plush, new, expensive building that had been refurbished and so on. And then later down the line, Birmingham opened as an ideal org, and then currently working on Manchester. And then after that, it will be Sunderland and Bournemouth and Poole. So there are buildings in most cities across the UK, but they are.
Yeah, we've got one in Plymouth, and
Yeah,
then the other
Plymouth.
one is Poole and
Yeah.
Plymouth are the two that are near me.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
Bournemouth and Poole were a mission at the time, and they were one of the largest missions. They
Right.
were they've shrunk considerably, but they've both of those cities and towns, they've bought buildings ready to be refurbished, but they're just taking the time over it. I was also in charge of Malta. Malta was in my territory, and that came under London. So there was a mission in Malta, and I was in charge of all the book sales there as well. So it was quite a big territory I was looking after. But London at the time would have had many more staff members than there are now. I have a couple of contacts who are still involved to some extent, and can confirm that there are no more than about 25 staff members, and there would have been at the time a lot more people in there than there are now. But it was kind of thriving when I was there, and we got a lot of people in. It was very, very busy. But now there's about 25 staff members, and there's probably maybe 50 public or something like that, which is less than a quarter what it was when I was in. Mrs. J, yes, go and subscribe to Mrs. J. If you're watching this on my channel, please go and subscribe to Mrs. J.
Yeah, come and subscribe to me. So I'll quickly say, so I actually have created a comic called LRHBS the comic. And LRHBS the comic is on my YouTube channel and also on my TikTok channel. And I am Mrs. J. IAMMRS. So I am Mrs. J. That's who I am, because I am Mrs. J. And my website is called IamLronhubbard.com. And you'll find out what all the adventures. I look at each week I do different things. So have a look, and I do little shorts and things like that. I have been interested in combating. I'll use the word cult. I hate doing that. I'm interested in cults.
Absolutely. Cheeky Sprite just put a comment in the comments thread that is, I think, would be interesting to talk about. It says, I went to a spiritual show at our local theatre when I first moved here, and there was a Scientologist stall. I did talk to them and then dismissed them because I saw shiny crystals and object. So this is an interesting story. I've not told this publicly, so you get the exclusive, Mrs. J. There is a trade show called the Mind, Body, Soul show.
There is, yes.
So one of my big major accomplishments as director, like as a sales director at Scientology, was going to this show every year. And we had a big stall there, and we had the Dianetic stall. We did the stress test and everything. And since then, I believe they've done that show every year since I've left, because it was so successful in selling lots of Dianetics books. So I don't know if that is the exact show that Cheeky Sprite is talking about. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me if they were there. Could have been me if it was the right time. I don't know about the crystals and so on, because crystals aren't really a Scientology thing. But they were obviously around because of it being a spiritual show and there being lots of crystal stalls and so on. But in Scientology, there's no crystals or anything. It's all about the e-meter, which looks like an easy bake oven. These metal cans that you hold and do your session through this electronic device.
But yeah, the best way if you don't know what an e-meter is, the best way to describe it really is it's a bit like a incredibly basic lie detector test. It responds to hand movement, and that's about it. It looks really basic, to be fair.
Yeah, so essentially what it is a resistance meter. So it passes a small current of electricity through the cans from one to the other through your body, the same way the screen on a the touch screen phone works, right? If you have an iPhone or something, a touch screen, the way it works is there's a small amount of current that comes through the screen, and your finger completes the circuit, and that's how it knows where your finger is. It's not enough to shock you or anything like that. The e-meter works in a similar way. It passes a small current through your body. And basically, the e-meter itself measures the resistance, the change in the current going through your body. And that's literally all it does. And it does do that. There's no doubting that. That is scientific. It measures the resistance of the current. Where it gets kooky is where Scientology say what that means. So what Scientology say is that the resistance of your body changes according to your thoughts, because your thoughts and your emotions and whatever have mental mass, right? So actually, by talking about these experiences and shedding this trauma and so on, that changes the physical mass of your body or of your whatever, of your mind, and that's why the e-meter reacts in the way that it does. So it kind of is scientific, and it kind of does work in a very scientific way, but it doesn't work in the way Scientology say that it works. It's similar to a lie detector. There's evidence to show that there is a change in resistance on the meter according to what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
But that's as far as the science goes. There's no way to prove that what you're thinking about is actually, you could be thinking about sunshines and rainbows and there might be a change in resistance. And then you can think about tying your shoelaces and there'll be a change in resistance.
Yeah.
So there is a correlation, yes. But what Scientology does is goes one step further and goes, okay, so that there is something we need to, find out more about or whatever. Yeah.
That's mad. How does the practice and organisation of Scientology differ here in the UK to over in the States?
So Scientology itself is a technology, it's a science that is meant to be applied 100% correctly by the letter and not altered or changed in any way. So in many senses, Scientology here in the UK is exactly the same as any other country anywhere on the planet, because the whole point is you cannot change or alter what L. Ron Hubbard said in any way, shape or form. And if it's applied correctly, it will work 100% of the time. That's the belief of keeping Scientology working, which is a policy you read on every course that you do in Scientology. So in many senses, Scientology is not different. In some senses, it is. The organization Scientology is split up into continents. So there's, West Coast US, there's East Coast, there's Canada, there's Europe, and there's Australasia, and the UK is kind of its own continent, its own territory, because of St. Hill, which is the headquarters.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that in a minute, but we'll go there.
Yeah,
we can maybe just naturally go to that in a minute. I was going to ask you about that.
Because of St. Hill, the UK kind of gets away with a lot of stuff. So international management, which is, David Miscavige and so on, they rule Scientology with an iron fist, and you have to follow orders, basically. The UK somehow tends to get away with kind of doing its own thing a little bit more than other territories. Don't get me wrong, David Miscavige is still very involved in the running of the church and how it's run and so on. But there is a little bit more lenience with the UK, and the way we did things organizationally often wouldn't have been allowed in other territories, because we kind of got away with it. We're a bit naughty, we're British, we're a little bit, we're just going to do it and figure it out later. And there's a history behind that of Scientology and St. Hill. So it's slightly different organizationally. But the actual practices of Scientology, what it does to people, the disconnection, the fair game, the tearing apart of families, and the locking of people like myself in a room and not allowed to leave until you tell us what you've done wrong, that happens globally, wherever you are, in any and every church of Scientology. Yeah.
All the time as well. There is people now locked in right now. It's happening right now, and there are people, like, whoa, it's shocking, basically. St. Hill, you bring up St. Hill, right? So if people over in America about St. Hill, so L. Ron Hubbard chose St. Hill. Now, St. Hill is really the location of St. Hill is a place called East Grinstead. East Grinstead doesn't just have Scientology headquarters. Oh no, it also has the Mormon headquarters, and it also has the Druid headquarters, all in a little area. Now, if you were to look at ley lines in the UK, this is again, this I'm going down the whole spiritual thing. There is a massive conjunction of ley lines at East Grinstead and where St Hill is, and I firmly believe that's part of what he was doing, because you have the Masons, the Mormons, and the Druids, and also Scientology, all waving at each other. There'll be shopping in the same shops, basically, in the same location. Yeah.
I want to reserve judgment on the people of East Grinstead, but what does it say about a town when there are all of these cults and groups and stuff all in one place? I don't know. But East Grinstead is a lovely place, and I did really enjoy my time there. And St Hill is a lovely part of the world. It's in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful building.
It's lovely.
It's very,
really,
you know, regardless of the whole Scientology thing, it is a nice part of the world.
Oh, I think we've just covered that. Oh, do we? Yeah, I think we've covered that one. That will lead us on to this. So how does the Church of Scientology in the UK interact with other religions and organizations in the broader community? I didn't mean to. I just want to say how brilliant that segue was there. Just need to just freaking say that.
Very well done, Mrs. J. Yeah, so the Scientology have a lot of links to the Nation of Islam, for example, which is an extremist Islamic group over in the States, but they do have a chapter here. I remember when those ties were initially forged, and we started getting a bunch of Nation of Islam people in London org, and the way we treated them was very different to the way we treated other members of Scientology. They have a lot of links to these groups, and the idea is that you can be any faith and be a Scientologist, because you can apply Scientology. What we would say to the Nation of Islam followers is that studying Scientology allows you to connect deeper and further with your own faith of Islam and your understanding of the Quran.
Wow.
So that's what we would say. That's how you position it. But the reality is, when you get to the upper levels of Scientology, there does come a turning point where you can't be another faith, because you have to be a Scientologist through and through, because that's the only way and the only thing, the only answer. But you don't get to that point where you have to make that full-on decision until you spent a lot of money and you've been in for a long time. So Scientology does like to forge ties with other religious groups. There are lots of interfaith groups that Scientology likes to become involved in, and the idea is when they are being persecuted or prosecuted in a court of law, they will then call on the help of other religious organizations and say, hey, look, we're being persecuted and we stand for the freedom of religious belief, and they call on their help in those sorts of matters. So they like to keep a good PR line and a good tie with every religious group they possibly can, just on the guise of religious freedom. Yeah.
Freaking crazy, mate. Crazy stuff. I don't know if I've asked you this. Has the London org of Scientology faced any notable controversies or legal challenges, specifically UK London based? Because we hear a lot about America. I want to hear about UK.
Yeah, the two key things that are London specific are, in order to perform a wedding ceremony in the UK, you have to, for it to be religious, you have to get a license. While I was there, actually, two of my colleagues and former friends, Louisa and Ali Calcioli, they wanted to get married in the church in London, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won that judgment. Louisa, her maiden name is Hodkin. Her father is actually the lawyer for Scientology here in the UK. So this is how tied the London org is to the central core management and running of Scientology on a global level. But they were good friends of mine, and they got married in the church. They took the government to the Supreme Court, and basically said, hey, we're a religion, we should have the right to perform wedding ceremonies in our building. And they won that at the Supreme Court.
But,
And then
but even though that they're not a religion, because in the UK we don't class it as a religion at all, do we?
well,
We
this
class
is
it as
where
a charity.
well, this is where the legal question comes in, because there isn't a body in the UK that recognizes religions. There isn't a religion recognizing part of the government, right? That doesn't exist. So whether something is considered a religion or not is determined based on a number of legal decisions across the board. So one of them is it a registered charity that's a religious in nature? The answer to that is no, because in order to be a charity, you have to be for the public benefit. So they're not registered as a charity. So they're not recognized as a religion in that sense. In order to perform wedding ceremonies, they go, cool, well, our wedding ceremony is religious in nature, and there was a whole legal battle there. They won that case. So they are recognized by the government as a religion in terms of you can get a civil wedding or a religious wedding. They're two separate things in UK law. You can get a religious wedding at the Church of Scientology in London. So they're recognized in that sense. And then the most recent battle, which is kind of came off the back of that, in order to get some sort of tax break, there is some special tax. I'm not an expert, but there's some sort of tax break where if you are a building that is open for public worship, you therefore pay less tax on your property. And because the church in the UK is not a religious charity, they have to pay this tax. If they were a charity, they wouldn't have to pay tax. But because they're not a charity, they have to pay tax on the property. So they were really keen to get recognized as a place of public worship, because that means they don't have to pay tax on their property.
Don't have to pay tax.
But the key thing here is not just, is it a place of worship, but is it a place for public worship? The thing they had to prove is anybody can walk into a Church of Scientology and take part in a religious ceremony of some kind.
Right.
Now, the ruling as to whether they can perform weddings or not actually caused the Supreme Court to redefine religion in UK law. So the current legal definition of law is based off a ruling that was done by my two friends, Ali and Louise Calcioli, in Church of Scientology. So they redefined religion in British law to encompass things like Buddhism and so on, and whether it's how it's practiced and the belief in the supreme being. All of those things were answered in this court case. So that then paved the way of, okay, well, what does religious worship look like? Well, we hold a Sunday service in the church every Sunday, and anyone can come to that. And when I was there, it was very heavily pushed. You have to come to Sunday service. If you live in London, come to Sunday service, because we have to show that we're open to the public and anyone can go to a Scientology Sunday service.
Can you give me a little hint of what a Sunday service?
It's a whole
snippet of it.
That's a whole kettle of fish, but it's basically everyone sitting in a room and reading scripture, L. Ron Hubbard scripture, and doing what's called group auditing. And yeah, we should do a whole separate video on it. But the whole idea is that the government then did these inspections to see, okay, they're saying anyone can go to a Sunday service, but is that actually truthful? Can anybody walk in and go to a Sunday service? And the legal documents actually reveal that on every single inspection they went to, the UK government's position is that the building is massively underutilized. It is empty. It may be open to the public, but the public aren't going. But because they couldn't prove that the public are not welcome to go to the public worship at a Sunday service, they were then in January of 2023, just a few months ago, given recognition as a place of public worship, which then gives them certain tax breaks. But let's remember, they are still not a registered religious charity. So they have some recognition in some areas, but not in others.
It's loophole after loophole, isn't it?
It's very complicated.
I mean, it's incredible how people have either, have sat down and thought, how are we going to do this? And someone somewhere has sat down in a room and said, this is how we're going to do it. And we're going to do it like this.
Well, let's not forget Louise and Ali Calcioli. Louise, her maiden name is Hodkin. Her father is Peter Hodkin, who is a very well-known UK lawyer. for the Church of Scientology. So he is the one. If anyone is going to take on the church, like the church's religious recognition, it's his daughter who wants to get married.
Is he first gen or second gen? Is he second gen?
I don't know. I think he might be first gen. I'm not sure.
First gen. Wow. Gosh. Yeah. The brainwashing techniques. I have seen it. There's a really good. I've seen a really good video of going to church on Sunday at the Church of Scientology, and it was by Reckless Ben. Mm-hmm. Now that was one classic video. So if you want to see a good one,
that's a really good example of what a Sunday service is like, actually.
Yeah. And
Reckless Ben is great. I've spoken to him a couple of times.
He's good, isn't he?
Yeah.
I really enjoy his. I've watched some of his stuff this week, actually.
Yeah, we exchanged a couple of ideas about things he could do in LA, because my ethics officer, who was the one that kicked me out, originally has joined the Sea Org, and he now lives and works in the Sea Org in LA. So Reckless Ben and I were just talking about different ideas that we could do that would be fun around that. So we'll have to wait and see.
Do them. A little bit more serious. Does Scientology approach mental health and emotional well-being without relying on how does Scientology approach mental health and emotional well-being without relying on psychology or psychiatry?
Really simply put, Scientologists believe that Scientology is the answer. It is the only way to help people on an emotional, on a spiritual, on a psychological level. So therefore, psychiatry is the devil, psychology is bad. There are no such things as emotions, because Scientology is the only way to really handle someone's upsets and problems in life. That is their belief.
Freaking aura. And how am I doing? Have you ever considered opening a Scientology-themed escape room with participants that would solve puzzles and avoid auditing and then get to freedom?
I mean, I hate escape rooms. The idea of being locked in a room based on experience is not something that I thoroughly enjoyed. And it's not something I would like to do with my spare time out of choice. So an escape room is not where I'm going to go and spend my spare time. But I do believe that that is quite a funny idea. I don't know whether that would land right with people like myself who have experienced that. But I like that, it's funny, and you've got to find things to laugh about with your experiences in Scientology. And it is traumatic and horrible for many, many people. But what actually unites many ex-Scientologists, me and Vanessa, for example, we talk pretty much every single day. And one of the things that unites us is our sense of humor and how we can laugh about how ridiculous or crazy certain things are. And if you can't laugh about it, you've got to find humor in something.
Exactly. Once you've defragged from being in a cult, and just to let you know, everybody, I was too, but it was a different cult. Hence why I do the stuff that I do, which we've talked about doing something about, but we haven't done yet as well. That's
yes, you have to come on my show.
Stuff, I know, it's more future stuff.
You have to come on my channel. I'll interview you.
Yeah. Gosh. Actually, now that I'm on screen now, that because I've hidden away for so long, it's been a. But yeah, I think you guys have given me the encouragement to actually step forward to do some of this, and I appreciate it as well. By the way, because I've spent a long time defragging.
Yeah, that's the thing with this whole Scientology thing is like, yes, we have our experiences and our trauma and all of this that we've gone through as Scientology, but there are so many similarities between Scientology and other coercive groups and cults and so on that I've actually met so many, like Marilyn is a prime example, who makes the Xenu bobblehead outfits. Like she was never involved in Scientology, but she's gone through her own cultic experience and upbringing. And the same with yourself. Like this is a community of people who have been through shared trauma. And even though our individual experiences were different, there are so many similarities, and we're all healing together as a group, and we're all here to help each other, regardless of whether it's Scientology or, whatever.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Thank you so much. If anyone's got any questions in the chat, fire away. I've got a couple more things I want to say.
Liz Ferris, she just put a comment. Don't forget, Alex, mental health. Get your TRs in. Yeah, this is a really good point, actually. I mean, in Scientology, mental health is seen as this non-existent thing, right? If you've got any upsets or problems or issues, Scientology is the answer. And if you, there's a whole rule of no case on post and no HENR, which is human emotion and reaction. I know that's a lot of gobbledygook for a lot of these people, but essentially what it means is you're not supposed to display emotion or feeling in any way, because that is led by your reactive mind, which is the thing you're trying to get rid of in Scientology. And actually, if you're thinking with your analytical mind, which is logical and makes sense and is rational, then you don't display these feelings of upset and misery and mental health trauma and all this. So the whole idea of Scientology is to get rid of your trauma and upset, which all sounds very lovely. Who doesn't want to have less trauma in their life? But the reality of it is it trains you in what's called your TRs, your training routines. You're literally trained to sit there and intellectualize, to talk and to confront and not register any emotion whatsoever, which can be helpful in some situations. Someone comes up to you in the street and starts yelling in your face. It might not necessarily be the best course of action to just hit them in the face. It might actually be better to take a step back and go, whoa, hold on, what's going on here? And try and de-escalate the situation. So TRs are good in that sense. But actually, the reality of it is it causes you to really numb down and become detached from your emotional self, and leaves you in a place in Scientology where you don't even recognize that you are having or feeling an emotion, because it's so suppressed before you even recognize it, which is really horrible. And that's one of the longer term nasty effects of Scientology. And if you have any sort of mental health issue or difficulty or trouble, it's not out ethics to go and seek support and seek help and talk to people and go to a counselor and a therapist. They're there to help you, and we're all here to help each other. And mental health is a real thing, regardless of what Scientology will tell you.
He is destroying stuff around, just so everybody knows. The rabbit is going to various locations where he's not allowed to be, because he's on units and things, jumping right up, and he's now over there. And he knows I can't get him.
No problem.
He knows it. Yeah, it's just he's being a little monkey today. My last question, and it's just me, me with my quirkiness. So right, do Scientologists have a secret underground network of bookstores where they can sell diagnostics disguised as romantic novels? So basically, are they do they disguise things and actually it's something else?
There used to be a Scientology dating site. That doesn't exist anymore, but there used to be a website you can go to.
There aren't any Scientologists.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But no, I mean, there's definitely a secret underground network of Scientology locations and bases and vaults where they've got gold-plated, discs in, titanium boxes filled with argon gas in nuclear-proof bunkers to protect the tech in case of the Holocaust. These things exist, but there isn't an underground network of bookstores.
Yeah, so I just want to say that. Let's just say that again. Because what you just said is absolutely mental. So let's because like you say it and then you think about it and then you actually think about it.
If you think about it, if you're a Scientologist and you believe this is the only way to help humanity, right? And you fully believe that this is the answer, you are going to do everything you possibly can to make sure that that is protected, right? And you don't lose it. Because can you imagine if we do all this good work and we clear the planet and then like an asteroid or meteorite comes and exterminates the human race? Well, then in 3 million years' time, when a new civilization starts up, well, they're not going to have all this technology that we developed that helps people. So that's the mindset. So they are going to put everything they possibly can into preserving and protecting this technology. So yeah, they spend millions of dollars on these underground bunkers that are like these nuclear Holocaust proof bunkers that all of the scripture and the lectures and so on that L. Ron Hubbard gave are all inscripted in these gold and titanium like discs and plates and stuff in these boxes that are made of titanium that are sealed and then pumped with argon gas because that's less reactive than oxygen. And then they are stored in these containers in different locations so that in, you know, if the worst was to happen, the tech will still be preserved.
And there's people down there, isn't there? There's people down there building these secret places all over America. We don't have it here in the UK though, do we?
There's not one in the UK. There's several in the States. I think there's one or two believed to be in Europe, but they are the most highly guarded secrets of Scientology is where these locations are.
And it's Sea Org members that look after them and nobody else.
There will be a handful of Sea Org members that know about them, and there will be even fewer Sea Org members that actually work there that know exactly where they are. That is it. Even if you are at the highest level of the international base in California, you are an upper level executive, you probably don't even know that these places exist. We're literally talking about a handful of people.
Yeah. And each Scientology, they don't know what they're doing either. So if you're on this level and there's the level below you, it's like that big blue building, let's say, for example, the big blue building, there could be people on one level and then the next level, those people don't know what the people...
Oh yeah, think about it. So I worked in London Org. There's London Day and London Foundations. The day is Monday to Friday 9 till 6, and Foundation is like the night shift, the evenings and the weekends, right? I knew one or two people on the Foundation shift, but I didn't know everyone that worked in the Foundation Org because I never crossed paths with them because they're, yes, in the same building and they might be using the same office as me, but at different times of the day. So I don't cross paths with them. So I knew a handful of them, yes. But someone could introduce me to someone who is a staff member at London Org at the same time I was there, and I might have no idea who they are because they worked on the Foundation Org and I worked on the day.
It's crazy. Last question.
SPTV Tattoo Warrior. Yes. So you asked this question actually the other day and I answered it on the other stream. So maybe you missed it. But for those of you who don't know, I pledged to donate 100% of my YouTube earnings in June to Mike Rinder to help him in getting his treatment. And I announced the number in the other stream. I think off the top of my head, it was £290, which is about $380 or something. And I believe SPTV Tattoo Warrior agreed to match that. But don't take my word for it. Go and check the other two streams where I said the actual number because I brought that up. So go and check those. But yeah, thank you. And I also saw Vanessa's in the house. So hi, V.
She is, yes. Hi, Vanessa. And I'm Mrs. J. Vanessa. So I am Mrs. J. It's nice to meet you.
Subscribe to Mrs. J.
Yeah. Come and see what I get up to because I'm a bit naughty. I've just got quickly. There we go. How does Scientology differ from the Freemasons?
I mean,
I'm just hold you 1 minute. He is absolutely destroying that thing over there. Whilst you're answering that, I'm just going to go and sort the thing out.
So I'm obviously not an expert in the Freemasons, so I can't draw personal exact parallels. But Scientology is a group that is quite secretive. It likes to control its members and control its beliefs and manipulate people, and so there are potentially ties there. The Freemasons believe in secrecy and is a brotherhood, and there's a lot of that kind of gang mentality in Scientology. But as far as the exact similarities, I don't know too much about the Freemasons to be able to comment on that.
Well, I've done some research on this, and because he was in the Freemasons originally, and also he was pals with old Aleister Crowley as well. So he smashed a bit of those things into his.
That's a whole. We should do a whole stream just on that topic.
There's so much, isn't there? It's just so much we can talk about. Yeah, crazy stuff. Any more questions, lovely people? Can I have a link for Mrs. J?
I just posted it in the chat. It's also in the description. If you're watching on my channel, you can click on the Mrs. J link in the description of the video. Go and show Mrs. J some love.
And Alex's channel is Apostate Alex.
Thank you.
Apostate Alex. Anymore
as it says on my t-shirt.
Oh, look at you with your t-shirt on.
With my SPTV crew.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And if you want any of my t-shirts, go to IamLronHubbard.com. That's IamLronHubbard.com.
Mrs. J's website is a kind of satire, comedy, fiction website about what happens to L. Ron Hubbard after he went to Target 2. And it is actually quite funny, and definitely go and check it out. IamLronHubbard.com.
And you can buy any merch. You can buy all your merch there, which is I am L. Ron Hubbard. So all of the merch that I've designed says I am L. Ron Hubbard. So everybody can be L. Ron Hubbard. Absolutely anybody in the world can be L. Ron Hubbard now. You just got to put one of my t-shirts on, or a hat, or a baseball cap, or a beanie. Yeah, promote the. I don't really promote my website, and I should do it more. Yeah.
So plugged it.
yeah.
Alrighty.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. J. It's been lovely talking with you, and hopefully we can get some more subscribers over to your channel, and I'll have to have you on to talk about your cult experience at some point.
Yes, mine is I'll just
Save
it. Took me a long time.
Yeah,
it took me a long time to defrag everybody. Basically, it took me a very long time to defrag. Thanks, everybody. Sure. Thank you, everyone. One love to you all, and I'll see you soon. And Alex is over with. Who are you next with? You going over?
I don't know. This is my last stream before I go away for the weekend, so I'll be back next week. I might go live later today. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. Have a nice weekend. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, guys. Everyone. Bye.